Welcome to drmom.com.
Hey, welcome back. I've been hearing a lot from a lot of parents that I've been talking to in a variety of settings with children of different ages that they're struggling to get their kids to sleep at night, to keep them asleep. I've had lots of parents that have used melatonin and they, reported that it helped their kiddo go to sleep, but in the middle of the night, the kid would wake up and not be able to fall back to sleep or something of that sort. So I wanted to just put out a few tips for sleeping in order to have healthy sleeping habits that helps make sure that your kids get better sleep and they're able to make it part of what their just living expectations are, not just while they're children and teens, but also into adulthood, because sleep habits are important. The recommendation for sleep is for ages 3 to 5 that they get 10 to 13 hours, and for ages 6 to 13 that they get about 9 to 11 hours, and then from ages 14 to 17 around 8 to 10 hours. And adults have expectations too. We all need sleep. So for adults, it's 7 to 9 hours recommendations. So sleep is really important because it helps our brain to get the rest that it needs, and our brain actually gets really busy while we're sleeping. It has lots of work to do. It's critical for all ages. It helps with our health so much, but in particular, sleep that is uninterrupted, so like not waking up so much throughout the night, getting in our cycles and allowing our cycles to happen naturally. Having that uninterrupted good sleep helps with regulation, with learning, and behavioral functions. And we know that all of these areas are difficult in general for a kid because their brain is still developing. So why make an added challenge for kids when they're already struggling in those areas so that they can develop in a healthy way? And we want to do whatever we can as parents, caregivers, to help them get into these sleep habits so that they can carry them on and they can feel better. So not getting enough sleep, it makes it harder across the board. It really does. It makes it difficult for kids to function optimally. As their parent, some parents are like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure if I can even help them get to sleep. And if there's an underlying medical concern, certainly you need to discuss that with your doctor. But if there's not, like some underlying medical concern that needs to be addressed, you certainly as the parent can influence your kids' sleep habits. And the younger you start, the better. The easier it is for it to stick. Okay? But that being said, teens really need good sleep habits too. So try to incorporate these with your kids of all school ages so that they can have those healthy sleep habits. Let's start with the most basic, but a very, very helpful tip. And that number one tip is routine. I know most of you may have heard this in other places. If you look up sleep habits online, routine comes up. But routine really does matter regardless of how old you are. The thing is, if you don't start a sleep routine young, it does become more challenging to incorporate that as your child is getting older, going into their teen years, wanting to practice more independence, which we want them to do. But if they haven't learned these habits when they were younger, it's difficult to try to incorporate that when they're trying to practice independence and be separate from you as they get older. So please try still to incorporate this as you have teens, as your kids age, but the younger you can start, the better. I will admit, as a parent of 3 at this time, routine is not easy. I have absolutely had times in my life, many, many times in my life, when I have gotten off my kids' bedtime routine, and I have absolutely seen a difference. And this happens for a variety of reasons. We as parents are not just managing being parents. Typically, we are wearing many hats, whether we're working or whether we're supporting our child while they're managing a mental health disorder, or we're managing our own mental health disorder, or we're trying to figure out finances. I mean, there's just so many responsibilities that we as adults have to take care of and monitor. And so the bedtime routine, it sounds like a simple thing that can kind of fall to the wayside, but it's really important. And I know, when I've been in grad school, I've had children throughout my schooling And while working full time and pumping and being pregnant and going to school and all of these pieces and still parenting, bedtime routine did fall at the wayside sometimes, and my kids would struggle to fall asleep more. And so the more on top of them I was with the routine, the more they could understand predictably what's going to happen. They knew what was expected of them. There wasn't some kind of surprise that was going to throw them off. And so they were able to get to bed a lot better. Over the years, over the past decade, I've worked with lots of families. Some families have used reward charts. Others have needed more like physical affection with their child because it's a comfort thing in order for them to fall asleep and feel more comfortable. Some needed a very clear, very delineated check-in time. So, okay, Sammy, I'll be back in 10 minutes to check on you. Rest your eyes for 10 minutes and I'll be back in 10 minutes. And having that very clear time frame was comforting for their child. So I say this because there's no one cookie cutter routine that I could prescribe to any one person. Really, the routine is going to be based on where your family is at right now, like what their situation is, what they're navigating, because you want it to be practical. You don't want to set yourself up for failure, but also what the strengths and needs of your own child and yourself are. You got to create a routine that is going to be realistic for what's going on with you guys at this time. Okay? Tip number 2, screen time. This connects with number 1, but it really is a tip in and of itself, because the recommendation is to eliminate the use of any TVs, phones, tablets, anything that elicits a blue light. And the reason for that is because our bodies create melatonin naturally, right? So at nighttime, when it gets darker, our bodies create melatonin so that we can relax and get ready for bed, right? And it kind of helps us to get in that state where we can relax our brains and sleep. And when we put these blue light emitting electronics in front of our faces, it actually reduces our body's natural ability to create melatonin. And then what happens is we put these screens in front of our faces and then we can't fall asleep. And so then we take melatonin because we've reduced our natural melatonin. And one way to avoid that is simply to stop putting these blue lights in front of our faces right before bedtime. A couple hours would be best if you could eliminate using TVs and all of those things, cell phones, a couple hours before bedtime. Now, I say this knowing that for plenty of families, they are going to find themselves in a situation where this is not practical. Teens, for example, that are really busy and have extracurriculars, they might go to school and then they go straight to their extracurriculars, and then they might work. And so by the time they get home, it's already dark out and they have homework that they have to do online, because a lot of teachers are doing a lot of online assignments and things like that. And so they're doing their homework online or on some kind of device before they go to bed. And it's difficult to get off of that. And it's easy to get sucked into social media while you're on that too. So let's be practical. Make it make sense for your situation. If you can, eliminate the use of tablets and phones and TVs a few hours before bedtime. Make that part of your routine. If you can't, at least reduce the amount of exposure right before bed that you and your kids have, so that your body is able to take its time to produce the melatonin that it naturally produces, so that you can have a good night's sleep. There is one way that you can actually, in some Apple products, reduce that blue light, and it's called the night shift function. It's in the settings menu, and it allows the user to kind of set when this night shift, which means it's going to reduce the amount of blue light that it emits, is going to kick in. And then you will get less blue light emitting while you're using whatever your Apple product is, so that you don't get so much all at once. So those are a couple tips for those. Sleep tip number 3, calming the brain. Anxiety and depression are not new, right? I mean, I'm assuming that a lot of you know that, but rates of anxiety and depression have significantly increased in recent years, and I could write an entire series on some of the reasons why this is happening. But for now, I'm going to say this. Many people that talk with me about having sleep struggles, adults and children, are also managing anxiety and or depression. So if someone is struggling with anxiety or depression, then they are struggling with internal thoughts. They are. Our thoughts can sound very, very loud when we're laying down in bed at night, especially if we're reading through social media posts and ingesting information that feeds our existing negative thought processes while simultaneously restricting our natural melatonin production that's intended to help us sleep. Kids struggle even more with this because their logical thinking brain is still developing. And so their brain's emotional system is kind of like ripe for reaping, right? And so they're managing anxiety and depression, and then they get on social media, which is emitting these blue lights before they go to bed, and then they get sucked in emotionally to whatever is being said, and that causes their thoughts to race more. How difficult to sleep when our brain feels like it is going crazy in our head, feels like our thoughts have taken over. It is so difficult to sleep when you feel like your brain has gone into overdrive. Different kids will find different options to be soothing for them, but for some to calm their brain, soothing music is helpful. Mozart, Beethoven, there's also meditation and mindfulness music you can find online, and then you can download it so you can play it without having the blue light emitting in your face, but you can just listen to it. For some, that's not going to work, and that's okay. You have to find what's going to help your child to calm your child's brain. Focusing on their breath, breathe in. When you breathe in, you want the belly to kind of pop like a balloon. Breathe out. We're honing in on each of the 5 senses, one at a time. We're guiding themselves into a safe and calm visual image that's soothing for them in their minds. And then there's also progressive muscle relaxation. It's great because a parent can do it with their child, and once you've done it enough, the child can likely learn to do it on their own. But they just lay in their bed, and you ask your child to focus on their feet. You start at the bottom, and they squeeze their feet so tight. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And they slowly release. And then the parent just follows them through the same guided squeeze and release from the bottom to the top of the body, the feet, the calves, the thighs, the belly, the hands, the arms, the head. You can be more or less detailed about what parts of the body you're squeezing, depending on the age and needs of your child. So for one child, you might have them, squeeze their fingers or notice their fingers and how tight they are and how they feel when they release. But for some other kids, you might not need to be as detailed as with the fingers, and it might be the whole forearm. Okay, depends on your kid. You'll figure it out. It's okay if you do a little trial and error. But the focus of this episode isn't mindfulness, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it right now. I do want you to notice, though, how my voice slowed down, my volume reduced, my tone fell a little bit lower, slower. Just presenting yourself in that way with your child at night helps to create a more soothing and calming atmosphere for a brain, especially one that feels like it's in overdrive. right? So mindfulness has many benefits. You can explore the variety of mindfulness options elsewhere on the web or even with me in future episodes. But they aren't going to work for everyone. Not everyone is at a place where mindfulness is for them, and that's completely okay. There's another option for calming the brain that I actually use with my kids, and it's the ILS DreamPad. ILS. It's the integrated listening system. It's a special pillow. It's sold by ILS. They make an exclusive pillow with their own technology. It's the integratedlistening.com. Integratedlistening.com if you're interested in checking it out. Their pillows use music and gentle vibration, you can't even feel it, to stimulate the brain's relaxation response. And I can personally say I've used it, especially like if I'm feeling sick and struggling to fall asleep because I'm uncomfortable. My husband's used it, my kids have used it, but in particular, I got this pillow for my middle child, who's 5 right now, and historically has had a challenging time with emotional regulation, in particular at night, going to sleep. And I have to say, the difference between his emotional regulation ability at night to get himself in a place where even if he doesn't want to go to sleep, he's not getting so upset that he's tantruming, having this meltdown. It's significant. I mean, the change is significant, and it didn't even take long. And so we're actually at a place now where the ILS DreamPad doesn't create a dependence. It actually helps the body to create its own habits so that you become less dependent on the pillow. And that's what I have seen with him. So now, I mean, he doesn't use it every night, whereas when I was getting started, he was using it every night. Now he'll ask if he thinks he needs to use it, or he'll say, I'm good tonight, and he falls right to sleep. Obviously, we have the routine down now, and he falls right to sleep. It's beautiful. And then sometimes I know his night has been off, and I can see that he's going to struggle. I can kind of use my parenting detection skills and see that, and then I will ask him to use it. I never force him to use it. He never fights me about using it. And then it helps him to kind of prevent the meltdown that I could see coming, which is amazing. So if you want to check that out, go right ahead. I certainly recommend it. They'll give you guidelines there if you're interested on what's age appropriate use and things like that. Sleep tip number 4, essential oils. I know that essential oils are like the talk of the town recently. I get it. Use of essential oils just goes back so far. I'm not going to get into the history of it. And it's okay if it is or is not your thing, but I do want to mention it here because I know so many parents that have incorporated the use of essential oils and really have kind of sung its praises. And I actually have had different experiences with my kids. Certain essential oils I don't see an effect on my kids, while other essential oils seem to have some effect. I don't recommend just, if you're struggling at night with your sleep routine and getting your kiddo to sleep, just using essential oils. I think incorporating all of these tips in some level in your routine based on what your family needs are and your child's needs are, that's really going to get you kind of the best bang for your buck. You're going to get the best results there. But I will say that it's important if you're going to use essential oils to check out safety information. The best website I have found so far that I really like is Mommypotamus, POTAMUS.com. And then it's /safe-essential-oils-babies-children. I really like that website. Check it out if you're interested in finding out some of the safety information, particularly for kids, if you want to try that. Lavender and chamomile may help with easing into a calmer state. But if your child is sensitive to smells, be careful because you don't want to overwhelm your child. This might not be a viable option. Using lavender or chamomile in a bathtub or a diffuser might be helpful. It's worth trying if it's something that you're willing to do some safety research on and figure out which way you'd like to use it. There are different methods. Just place a few drops into a carrier oil if you want to, rub it on. I know that when I do use essential oils, I do tend to be effective with my kids. I put it at the bottom of their feet and I get the best results that way. Sleep tip number 5. Please know that day impacts night. The daytime routine that your child engages in will also impact their ability to sleep at night. So if your child's not getting much exercise, is eating chips and pretzels and drinking soda all day while staring at a video game screen, your child is likely going to struggle with getting quality sleep at night, among other things. Getting physical movement throughout the day, limiting caffeine intake later in the day, and drinking water regularly, also eating small amounts of nutritious foods every 2-ish hours will help keep your child's body in a healthier, balanced condition, and it will help with kind of getting their body in a place where they'll have a better night's sleep if you're incorporating these other tips as well, the routine, clear expectations, and all those other pieces. So it allows their body to be in a healthy state, more balanced, and to transition more optimally into a restful sleep time routine at night. So please be cautious of that. And tip number 6, be sensory aware. It might seem like an obvious one, but if your child runs kind of like cold a lot, you want to be aware of that. If one of your children runs really hot a lot, you want to be aware of that because they might not be comfortable. And that might be part of why they can't fall asleep. They may need more blankets, less blankets, thinner blankets, a different pillow. They might need a fan on or a fan off, a humidifier, or maybe some more heat. You have to be aware of the child's physical comfort, and if you haven't thought about it, then that might be part of what's going on. It might not have been something you just didn't think to ask or didn't think to notice or do some parenting detective work about, and so it might be a simple thing that you can incorporate to be more cognizant of the sensory needs of your child. So you want to notice if while they're sleeping, if they have all the covers on them, or if they have them flipped off them, or while they're trying to fall asleep, if they're wrapping themselves up in the covers, or if they're kind of kicking the covers off. This gives you some awareness as to where their body is feeling comfortable and when it's not feeling comfortable, and then you could talk to them about that comfort level as well. Textures and pressures could also be part of the sensory piece. And so if it's not a soft blanket, or maybe it is a soft blanket, your child could be more or less comfortable with the very plush feeling. Some children love the plush. My daughter loves the plush, loves that plush feeling of the blanket, and she likes to cover herself with them. Whereas my son is not super into the plush blankets. Plush clothing, yes. Plush blankets, not so much, and that he's not comfortable with that. So I have to be aware of those different sensory needs that they have. We also want to think about the scratchiness of the clothing that they're wearing while they're sleeping, because if they're having scratchy pajamas on and they're sensitive to that, that might be part of why they're feeling uncomfortable too. Skin, like itchiness, they might need lotion if their skin's keeping them up and that's itchy. So all of these sensory pieces, again, it seems like it's a simple thing, like, oh, well, why wouldn't anybody think of that? But there's a lot going on as a parent, right? Like I said in the beginning, we are all wearing different hats. So you might not have thought of this, and now this can just be something in your minds that you want to kind of check off the checklist and be aware of. Depending on your child's sensory needs, a weighted blanket could be helpful, but for some, it could be uncomfortable. I have absolutely had kids with anxiety on the spectrum that have loved the weighted blankets. It feels like a warm hug. That's how they often describe it to me. And so it's not even restricting for them. It feels very comforting without having someone else in their zone. So a weighted blanket could be something to explore. Some people sleeping with a weighted blanket is just not gonna work, but maybe having the weighted blanket when they're feeling overwhelmed or taking a smaller nap is something that would work for them. I just want to say this is not a comprehensive list, but I do hope that these 6 tips are helpful to you in some way. If you have some things that are already working, keep on doing it. Add some of these tips in, see what works for you. Got to trial and error a little bit. And if you have questions or if you have any suggestions that have worked that I didn't say here, go ahead, leave a comment below. I really look forward to hearing it. And thanks for checking in with me today. I appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Until next time. Bye.
DrMom.com does not constitute a client-patient relationship and claims no clinical responsibility for any information presented on this channel. Please seek out a therapist in your area if you would like to pursue individual clinical support.